Mike here again. We're going to work into Chapter 8, talking about different kinds of traps. We've got live restraining traps and kill type traps. So the three categories of the live restraining traps would be the cage trap, the foothold trap, and our cable restraint. All three of these are designed to hold an animal without killing it. The other category would be the kill type traps. A colony trap for muskrat and mink fully submerged would be kill type. A snare that we commonly use for beaver, can also be used for otter, would be a kill type, not to be confused with a cable restraint. This is a snare. We've got body grips that are designed to kill the animal. And the fourth one would be hooking up a trap like a foothold trap to a submersion system. Now this is a small submersion system, but the idea is you attach your trap to that drowner lock and the animal slides down and cannot reverse its course and then would submerge and drown.
This is a cage trap, commonly called a rollover cage trap, rollover live trap. And the reason it's called a rollover, if I hit the treadle here, set the trap off, if it rolls over, the washers slide down, it opens up. It's a very good trap. This one is used specifically for raccoons. You could catch and relocate them live if you wanted to, or you could reduce them to your possession. The trap needs to be staked because, as you saw, when it rolls over, it opens up. So you want to stake it right side up. That's the live trap.
Cable restraints. We've got a cable that can be made of, say, 3/32 galvanized aircraft cable, and we'll be discussing in a future video on how we're going to be setting this in a trail. Basically, once you open this up, slide it down to the stop, insert the coil into your wire that's going to hold it up. This trap is now set, and of course you would need to stake it down, but this is setting a cable restraint. The third category would be the foothold traps. We have both coil spring and long spring traps, and we've also got the enclosed trigger traps, which works on a coil down here. Now, go ahead.
The enclosed trigger trap is used in situations where you want to catch, and it's specific to raccoons because raccoons eat by bringing the food to their mouth rather than their mouth to the food. Bait is placed inside the trap, the spring is compressed, the dog is set down, and the trap is set. Now, when the raccoon comes along, he reaches in for the food with his hand, pulls up, and it holds him here. You can anchor this with a ground anchor, or you can wrap your cable around a tree and anchor it to a tree in that fashion. It's very easy to set quite a few of these in a very short time. Mike?
Jim showed you setting this with your hands. For those of you who lack the strength, they do make setters for these. Just set this inside here and pull down and bring the dog down and then set it in the notch. Working on hand strength is probably something a lot of you younger trappers might want to work on. I would suggest that you go to some muscle store that sells barbells and things and find one of these. And you can sit there and watch TV at night and play with your video games and be squeezing this, and the whole idea is to build up strength. And of course you'd want to do that with both hands so that, number one, your arms look the same, and number two, you can be setting long spring traps.
You don't have to be a muscle-bound individual to set traps. A lot of it has to do with leverage and just hand strength. So here, one of my favorite canine traps is this number 11. It's also a very good raccoon trap. I use it in water pocket cubbies, and we'll talk about them later. But it's the leverage. It's not my strength, it's the leverage. I push down with my palms. As I do that, I break them over center And the physics of it are, once I have it done, it's the trick to getting it locked in. So it's not necessarily strength, it's the tips and tricks of the trade.
Now the same can be said for this larger trap. This is a number 5, and again, it's all leverage. I'm going to bring this on your knee, crack it down, bring the long springs down, and then flip that dog over. You always adjust that pan underneath that loose jaw. Crank those long springs forward, bring that pan down, and now it's set.
I think this would be a good time to talk a few terminology points. All these traps have a chain on them. All of them have a swivel, except for the body grip. The reason there's no swivel on a body grip is because hopefully doing its job properly, the animal is dead and can't swivel. So it doesn't need a swivel. You've got springs, whether they're long springs or coil springs, they've got springs. You have jaws, you have the trap pan, and you have the dog. In order to set the trap, always point the dog away from you. This is the working jaw. It's the lockdown jaw. This jaw is loose. You can lift it up to work on the trap. So, in order to set this trap, you're going to use your hands in this fashion, compress the springs. You can use your thumbs, and once you have that dog across the working jaw, you can lock it in. Now, if you notice, this jaw is loose. That's the safe jaw. You always work under the safe jaw. As you point the springs towards the front of the trap and lock it down, with your hands in this area here, if I make a mistake, nothing bad happens. Mike?
One trap setter, the Sleepy Creek, and I'll call it the Sleepy Creek by name because they sell a couple of small pieces of wire in there that are bent into a U. If you lack the hand strength or the technique to set something like a number 5, you can take your U-bolts off, squeeze this together, put your U-bolt on there. Same for the other side. And of course, the assumption here is that you have the hand strength to at least move this. And now you can lay that trap down, flip that dog over, work underneath that loose jaw, bring it up, crank the long springs forward, take off your U-bolts, and the trap is set. And of course, you can see if you go through that much foo-foo-rah, you might as well learn how to properly set this over your knee.
Going back to the coil spring traps, I want to go through the parts of a complete trap, and this is actually a BMP trap. We talked about best management practices earlier. Double stake down. 3 sets of swivels on the end. A compression spring. This is a pit spring that I like to use. It's a 100-pound spring. In order to do that, I'm putting 100 pounds of pressure. It softens the chain a little bit. Swivel on the bottom. This was a 4-coil, but brand new. It was almost too strong. I weakened it by removing 2 coils. After they're 5 years old, I'll put the new coils back on. Again, to set it, push the dog away from you. I like to say karate hands. When we were little kids, we ran around karate hands. You're going to remember it as karate hands to set a coil spring trap. Karate hands. The karate part of your hand on the levers. Push down. You've got the dog pointed away from you again. As you push down, once you have that dog across the jaw, you're home free. And you're going to hold it down, lift up the jaw from underneath the safe side, or lift up the pan from underneath the safe jaw. And again, just like Mike's trap, you're going to hear this click when it goes in. There it is. Perfectly set trap. Look how wide the jaws are. And with all the equipment on it, this is a BMP trap. Mike?
Not all traps are going to give you that little click. These traps have a little bump on top of that dog.
Or a notch in the dog in this case. Notch, that one's got a bump, this one's got a notch.
Let's talk about setting a typical 1.5 coil spring These are both the same trap. This one we painted white. We use it in our trapper education class. I've heat treated these coils to give the new guys, especially the younger ones, a chance to set a trap that doesn't have much trap strength. So you can take your knee and use your karate chop and bring those levers down and come underneath here and set. So once again, knee, how do you say that, Jim? You're karate chopping?
This is the karate side of your hand.
Karate side. So I'm bringing it past so that jaw flops down. I'm holding it here. I'm holding it here. Flip that dog over. And now underneath the loose jaw. And here we are. And of course, the trap with a pan up in the air like that is not set correctly. What we want to do is bring that pan down just a little bit until it's level and that trap is ready to go.
In this situation here, I have the exact same trap and I have that pan so close to the edge of the notch that I cannot get it level. In this case here, you're going to get this instrument, looks like a tuning fork, and you're actually going to take, I want that pan to sit level. As Mike just said, that's not properly set until the pan is level. As I rock this forward, you will see me push the pan down. As that pan goes down to where you want it, in this case here, I made it a little bit low, but that's all right. I can move it back up again. I can bend it back out just by placing some pressure on the attachment of the dog. Hopefully I don't set off the trap doing this. And now we have a perfectly tuned trap right there.
Trap sizes sometimes can be confusing. This is a #1 coil spring. We got a #1 or a 1.5 here, Jim?
That's a 1.5.
1.5 long spring, and this is a guard type trap. Here's another #1.5. This is a #11. If it lacked the other long spring, you just had one, it would be a #1 trap. But with 2 long springs, we call that a #11. You've got some others there a little bit bigger.
I do. I'm back to the coil spring. This is a Bridger #3 4 coil. 1, 2, 3, 4 coil. Also, the jaw is fairly narrow, so what I did was I actually took some #8 wire, Mike, #8 wire, and I welded it on top. So the pressure area has been increased. The surface area touching the animal's foot has been increased. If you understand pounds per square inch, if I'm pushing together and I've only got a 1/4 inch, I'm putting roughly 200 pounds. If I increase that to 1 inch of surface area, I'm back to 50 pounds. It's a lot less pressure that way. So this is a laminated trap. This is a #3. This trap here specifically is designed for use in heavy snow where we've got to power up through the crust and hold a larger type canine such as a coyote in the trap. That's why the 4 coils and the larger, stronger trap. Mike?
#4 double long spring. Used to be a very common beaver trap, and now, of course, we bumped up to the #5.
Because bigger is better, right?
Well, with trapping beaver it is, especially if you're targeting that hind foot. Because the hind foot of a beaver will span a #4 and throw its hind foot out. With #5, if set correctly, it'll bring it up around that foot. Coil springs and the bigger ones, this is an MB 750, which 750 might infer that once set, this has a 7.5 inch jaw spread.
2 of the more common traps, and I believe Mike talked about the guarded trap, the 1.5 guarded, but these are the mainstay of most muskrat lines. A single 1.5 single spring and a 1.5 with a guarded spring. This keeps the animal from being able to chew his foot. It keeps his body held in a position, and this is generally set as a drowning type set. The animal dives off his perch, goes into the water as submerged, the same as this. The weight of the trap holds the animal underwater. In a very short while, he is euthanized.